Boom. All right. So we are here. It is a special edition of Candid Conversations. We have the man himself, Swish Styles, and we're here talking about, the life and times of the man himself. The struggles, the successes, the valleys, the peaks. Oh man. So wow, where do we start? We'll start at the beginning. Where did you get the name? Where was Swish Styles born?
Swish Styles was a process. I had a few names, man. I remember at one point I was calling myself Dr. Jack Hill.
Okay.
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Swish Styles was the one that kind of really came into my own. I used to freestyle a lot before I ever really wrote songs, and I used to have this thing called UV. I actually have UV tatted on my arm. My boys, JR and Brajowski. JR I don't get to talk to as much as I'd like to now. Brajowski is basically family to me.
Okay.
Family is family to
me. Yeah.
That goes deep. So one night we were barbecuing and freestyling and stuff like that, and Swish Styles just kind of came out of nowhere, and I started running with Swish Styles.
I think that's when I first heard about you, when you were Swish. I was like, okay.
And then as we got into marketing and branding, it just made more sense to be Swish Styles.
Okay. All right. There you go. So you see, it's an evolutionary process here. It's a Christmas season, so don't mind my hat themes. It's something that they started to expect of me. I walked into this office the other day that I frequent, and they're just like, "What? No hat?" So I had to kind of maintain my.
I fuck with it, man. I like the tubes.
Yeah, man. They're just, And there's so many different characters now that you can actually wear. It's crazy. Like, I remember when hats were just straight up black, and then you had the mask. And that was it. You know what I mean? But yeah. Speaking of masks. You're not calling me now. I'm getting a call from New York Fries right now about some shit. I ain't even about to answer that.
Shout out New York Fries. Yo, your works are the shit.
Yo, I just had that, I literally for the first time had that today. And I'm sitting there like, I'm feeling bad because I'm eating my fries and shit. My daughter's fries are messed up. My wife's fries are messed up. And I'm there with the perfect fries. Just like, well, I really feel bad, but y'all don't mind if I enjoy this, right? It is what it is. But let me get one of these questions out of here. We're gonna feather these questions in because I like when the conversation just flows naturally. But there's been a few people that I've kind of had conversation with over the last couple of weeks, and there's some questions even going back to. I hate revisiting the past because if it's not a good thing, but even going back to January 25th, was it 2019?
Mr.
Fuck Niagara. Yep, that was definitely.
That's cool because I want to really put this in my past, and that was one of the reasons why me and Ezra did the track, was to kind of show the city shit happens. Nobody's perfect. I'm never gonna sit and say I'm fucking perfect, but it was a point to say I knew the night I did it, when we walked out of that venue, I looked at it as I'm like, dude, I fucked up. They knew it didn't really, I don't think it really hit Choom until the next day when everything was talked about. But then I seen Choom at the 2019 Niagara Music Awards, and we talked, we hashed everything out. And that was why, like I said, as I'm like, we got to do this track. It happened. It is what it is. Let's make the best of it.
Okay. Now, I know you're going through some times. I don't know exactly the timeline of what happened. So, we might be jumping back and forth a little bit. But, you were dealing with some personal matters during this time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I believe it was the week before that show. And in retrospect, I never should have took that show. Choom should have just had that headline. I should have never took that show. I was not in the right mind space. So the week before that show was in the same week I found out I was going to be diagnosed with cancer. And it didn't sink in at first because my mother, when I was born, shortly after I was born, my mother had uterine cancer. She had to get a hysterectomy. And then when she was in her 50s, I was in my late teens. She had breast cancer, and
Jesus.
that went away. So I would imagine the breast cancer is part of what caused the bone cancer. They say that's one of the ways it happens. So my mom was struggling with this for years, but it just, I hadn't even clicked. Like I was at that point where like I was just angry at the world, and I'm like, my mom's gonna beat this, you know, all this and that. And that was when like my mom kind of said to me, it was like a week or two later, and I'm like, so what's going on? And she's like, well, I'm going to start chemo. And I'm like, wait, you never did chemo before? Because she never did chemo before.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, but it's terminal. And that was when like, I think that was a couple days before the show.
Oh.
So like I just should not have been there. I shouldn't have done that show. I should have been dealing with my demons right from the start.
So did you feel like you did the show to kind of as a way to deal with your demons?
I would definitely say I was looking forward to that show as a way to escape.
Okay, all right. Because I wouldn't call myself an empath, but like I have a sense of things, you know what I mean? And like I'd seen you before, and then I saw you at that show. It's something you didn't seem the same. You didn't seem the same. Like something like your spark.
That was the start. It even now, like I'm slowly getting back to being who I was before, but it's been a process.
So now I'm not, don't take this as nonchalance, but I always have this thing where I say life is a cycle. You know what I mean? We know it's coming. We know what's coming. You know what I mean? But like, I could never I on my own, I'm dealing with personal matters, similar but different situations. It's a parental thing, you know what I mean? And we can talk about it, you know, when it's my time to be interviewed or whatever. But so I could only imagine like how you felt, and it must have been like not a catch-22, but like a bittersweet moment, because at one time you're fearing for the loss of one while you're looking forward.
So if it's okay, I'm going to dive in, and I'm just going to tell the whole story so you can kind of understand. So January, that happened. Would have been April. My mother's birthday was April 20th. I'll never forget. I never had a hard time forgetting my birthday.
Nice.
So by April, my mom went in for her first session of chemo. It was okay. My mom went in for her second session of chemo. She stopped eating. 3 days later, my dad sent her to the hospital by ambulance. She never came out of the hospital. So while everything was going on with my mom was caregiving for my grandma. So when she went into the hospital, that became my burden. I had to deal with that. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call it a burden, but it was a struggle, because through going through all that, I found out a lot about my family, about my grandmother, a lot of stuff I never understood when I was younger, that even trying to learn psychology to process never made sense until the final days of my grandmother before she passed, and I started learning dark things that I'll take to my grave. So I go check on my grandmother. It's been like a week after my mother's been in the hospital. I find my grandmother, she's got pneumonia. Now, my grandmother always had pneumonia. She off and on. It was a thing through my whole life. Ninth wonder of the world. How many times that woman had pneumonia? Yeah. So I started taking over caregiving. So to give you a timeline, my mother was diagnosed in January. Yeah. She passed away on June 21st.
Shit, that's my aunt's birthday.
So 6 months later. So
okay.
April, she goes into the hospital. I start taking over my grandmother's caregiving. So my grandmother goes into the hospital the day I come across her. I'm like, you've got to go to the hospital. You got it. So they nurse her back to health for like a month. They deem her independent. So that means, okay, she can take care of herself. Yeah. So I assume independent. Okay, I'm going to get her into a retirement. Get her somewhere where there's a nurse. 2 days into the retirement home, they deem her crisis, and they demand either I get a 24/7 PSW or I remove her from the premises. So for those of you at home wondering what it costs for a PSW, they go between $28 and $32 to $35 an hour. And when that is a 24/7 job, that cost was going to hit somewhere between $20,000 and $24,000 a month. You know how to fucking pull that money, man? Because I used to sell everything that didn't need a needle, and I can't fucking make that money.
Ooh, boy. You know what?
Not in this city, anyways. Maybe in Toronto, but like.
No, there's like $20K a month.
So what ended up happening was I ended up getting involved with the Central Lynn. the LHIN, LHIN, is basically a government-funded program that helps people of not necessarily just lower income, but people that aren't able to do everything for themselves.
Yeah.
In my case, because I didn't have a fucking clue of what I was doing at this point, I was just trying to get everything done and make it work. So they ended up helping me get her a place in a long-term care facility.
All right.
So now back to the timeline. So long-term care facility goes, she's in the Roxborough. It's now May.
So you're
It's
April,
May. I've seen my mom a handful of times at this point.
Okay.
So May comes in. I'm already like trying to get this shit. I get her settled at about the middle of May. I think I had maybe 2 weeks between once I finally got her into the long-term care facility and my mom passing. So now I wanted to talk about addiction, and I'm going to delve deeper into this in a moment. But at this point, this is when cocaine started getting bad for me.
I was going to ask because, like...
So my last few times I saw my mom before she passed, I was high as fuck on cocaine. And, like, please understand, I'm not trying to take away from those who really struggle, because there are people who have gone through hell and back with a lot harder drugs than cocaine. I'm going to give a shout out to my cousin who has beaten a very, very heavy fight with addiction and now is a very model spokesperson for addiction out in the East Coast and is doing things up in Owen Sound. I commend her very much for what she has struggled and beaten. By all means, go check out Andrea's journey. That's not my place to speak on that. But where I had my heaviest demon with cocaine, it was because I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to deal with my baby mama's pregnant. My mother's dying of cancer. My grandmother's dying of COPD, and I'm trying to take care of her. Every night I would work 8 to 12 hours. I'm juggling a full-time job all this time, too.
I'm saying, like, hold on a second, because I remember you mentioned having a job, and so you have an 8 to 10 hour job.
Oh, buddy, 12 to 15 hours.
Oh, shit. Okay, so you got a 12 to 15 hour job. There's only 24 hours in the day. So let's say it's 12. Let's give the devil his dues and say they're only slave driving you for about 12 hours, because it doesn't sound like easy work.
No.
Okay, so
I end my day. I'm driving to the hospital to visit her. I'm driving to the retirement or the long-term care facility to visit her. I'm not even getting home to like 11 and 12 some nights, because I'm going to spend nights with her until she gets to that point where she's going to pass out from the medication, just to spend time with my grandmother, because I knew the inevitable was coming. So to continue the timeline from June,
yeah,
my grandmother passed away 6 months later to that, almost to the day. My mother passed away on June 21st. Yeah. My grandmother passed away on January 20th.
Oh, dude.
So I didn't know how to cope. And to give you guys a perspective, my baby mother never even got a baby shower. That's something I've still got to figure out how to make up with her, because I was doing so much of this, just trying to keep my shit afloat, that my baby mother didn't even get a baby shower. And it's fucking sad to think about, because every woman deserves that.
But at least you see, that's one thing I want to point out that not a lot of people might catch, that you had the couth to realize that's something that you could provide, but like it was just a sacrifice that you had to make at the time. And it's like,
so like going through June, like right around April, May, I just started getting so overwhelmed, nobody to talk to. And this is another thing I want to bring up, is men's mental health, because everybody talks this game. Everybody's like, bro, if you ever need anything. But when it really comes down to it, like, how do I talk to you about what I'm going through? How do I talk to anybody about what I'm going through? So I started using cocaine. I started literally just trying to numb myself. I would get off work and I'd do a rip, go on with my day, go visit my grandmother, go do what I got to do, and get shit done. My mother's funeral, I didn't shed a tear, and nobody realized it was because I had cocaine in my system. I wasn't thinking about what I was doing. All I knew is what had to be done had to be done. When my daughter come, you hear stories from them like, oh, I couldn't watch it. Oh, I couldn't do that. The doctor fucked up the epidural. The nurse is standing on this side, and I'm standing on this side holding her leg. Fucking, this baby's coming. I cut the umbilical cord. I didn't give a fuck about what was going on, because I had cocaine in my system. There was no emotion. This shit was getting done. My daughter was coming. That's all that fucking mattered to me. So by the time everything settled, my grandmother had passed, and like, okay, need to be doing this anymore. It was too late. I was doing cocaine every night. I didn't sleep nights. I'd wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning with chest pains, arm pains, because cocaine was in my system and I shouldn't have been trying to sleep so quick. And it's just coke. That was the way it started getting for me. And then the biggest blessing in disguise for me was COVID. COVID literally just shut the world down and stopped me from having to. I couldn't go. I couldn't get it. I couldn't do anything. I had like a 3-week sober period where I was forced to sober up, and it really started making me realize the blessings I had in front of me.
Okay. All right.
So I'm gonna stop there, and I'm gonna let you take back over, and then I'll start. But to give everybody a perspective of what 2019 was for me, was like there was no 2019 for me. I was writing songs to keep my head sane while just doing coke to get everything done that had to be done.
And not putting that aside, but looking at the fact that you, like, okay, a full-time job is hard enough to deal with, let alone, I mean, healthy parents. I mean, really, that's like, love my parents in life, you know what I mean? Sometimes I can't even, you know what I mean? So then you got the kid, like, or your child being born, and then like your commitments and your responsibilities to your spouse. What was like the breaking point? When did you receive a revelation? When was the revelation? When did you say, you know what, I gotta stop doing this?
The cocaine.
Yes.
So this is a very, very, very weird, trippy thing. So we shot the video for Hand Grenade. I can tell you, like, the night before I was partying doing cocaine, we shot Hand Grenade. And shooting the scenes for Hand Grenade and then sitting with Val and editing everything almost forced me, it forced me to deal with demons that I didn't realize were causing it.
Okay.
And just made me go through everything I had gone through with my mother. But this time I was able to just kind of sit and focus on that aspect instead of, because I didn't really realize what I'd went through with my mother. I was too focused on everything else I had to do at the time. Whereas this time COVID's happening, the world's not really happening, I'm not working as much. So it was literally like me facing the demon of losing my mom. And it just, I don't know, it was an epiphany. Hand Grenade, shooting the video for Hand Grenade was an epiphany for me. It just made me face the demon. It made me realize what was going on. And by the time we were done with Hand Grenade, my mentality had just changed. I didn't want to do cocaine anymore. I didn't want to escape anymore. I didn't want to be numb anymore. You know what I mean?
Okay. So let's flip it for a positive note for a second. Hand Grenade. I'm hearing there's something very significant about that hand grenade, about, like, not only just the song and the merchandise, but you have a new product, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So for anybody in the Niagara region, in St. Catharines on St. Paul Street, there is a wicked smoothie coffee bar called Quench Beverage Bar. Yep. They have a signature drink. It is chocolate cherry. Now, I promise you, because my first reaction was, oh, this is going to be really sweet. They did an amazing job of mixing it. It is not overly sweet at all. It is amazing. And all proceeds of this drink are going to be donated to Hospice Niagara, along with all my Hand Grenade merch. If you cop shirts, I want to thank you so much, because I know some of the people watching right now did cop shirts over this summer, and I appreciate your support so much for doing this. For those of you who haven't and you want to grab one, get at me in my messenger, call me on the phone. I will happily get one printed up and deliver it to you.
Let them know where they can reach you on that. For those watching on my stream. Those on your stream, obviously.
You can find me on all social medias at Swish Styles. www.swishstyles.com. Send us an email. You can get a hold of my manager, Wildridge, at the pawn shop, or go over to the Jump Off, St. Catharines, also both on St. Paul Street. Get a hold of us. Get a hold of us. You can find me everywhere, Swish Styles.
Man's doing things, you know what I mean? Like, okay, let me dive back into some of these questions here, because
by all means.
All right. Now, how long have you been in the industry?
So in the industry, this is a tricky question. So I've been an artist since I was 19. That's where I found myself, and I started freestyling. My first show was actually with SDK. It was the first time Snack and all of them had actually come to Niagara.
Okay.
That was my very first show. Thank you, Neil Gordon, for that one.
All right.
So in the industry, though, because that is a different question. Doing a couple shows here and there, making some songs is not in the industry. In the industry is when you're working with professionals, when you're really doing things. I would say in the industry, maybe 5 years, not even, maybe 4 to 5 years.
Okay, now with taking that, what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago, based on what you know now?
Slow down. Shows are amazing, but if you get caught up in the hype of what shows are and the enjoyment of it, you're going to miss out on the business opportunities that could feed your family.
Ooh. That's a general misconception that the more shows you cram in, the better off you are.
So yeah, the better off you are. If you're not selling merchandise, if you're not getting emails to build a list, if you're not connecting with your fans on a personal level, all those shows don't mean shit.
Y'all just got a gem right there. Candid Conversations, episode 71. We are here with the man himself, Swish Styles. This has been a long time coming. We had him on the Terrell Effect where we were talking about music, but now we're talking about the life and times of the man. And we got some questions here that, you know what I mean? I've gotten a few questions. Some wanted to remain anonymous. Some didn't mind being known. Okay, here's one that I wanted to know. And like, it's still kind of, even though we're sitting here having this conversation right now, I'm still a little baffled. It's like, why did you choose to expose yourself like this?
So I've always been the type of person where like I keep certain things hidden. You'll never see me posting pictures of my daughter. You'll never see me posting stuff about my family unless it's something I want to be known. I keep my personal life very protected for my family. And that's because I didn't start as a rapper. I started in the streets. I have friends. I have enemies. I have enemies that can be dealt with very quickly, but it's not the situations I want. I want to be a businessman. I want to be successful, and I want the people around me to be successful. But for this, it's that I know there's been a lot of common misconception. I know that people have kind of turned face over the last 6 to 8 months, especially since I started doing stuff like the 1 million music video. So the way I see it, know the truth. You want to hate me? Go ahead and hate me, but hate me for who I am, not for who you think I am, based on some rumor or some misconception or what you're seeing on screen of who I'm trying to portray myself as an artist versus the real me.
And that's one thing I've been able to respect about, well, one of the things I've been able to respect about you. It's like, I am who I am. That's all that it is. I'm not trying to be anybody else. Like, in the times I've come across you, you've maintained your same candor. So it's not like one minute I see you in your, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, Block, what up? And the next minute it's like, oh, fuck this guy. You know what I mean? The next time I see you, it's like, I didn't say that. You know what I mean? It's always been consistent, like, you know, consistent respect across the board. So I just want to extend that back. Okay. Now, you were just talking about the 1 million video. Was it a Phantom or a McLaren?
A McLaren 570S.
Why the McLaren?
Okay, so this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. So the whole concept of the video was, if for those of you who've watched the whole 6-minute video, is that I basically fell asleep, woke up, I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm doing all these big things, and enjoying this lavish lifestyle that we all want to enjoy and work for. And then right at the end of the video, I wake up, go check my pockets for the money and everything, and go, oh, it was a dream. So the McLaren specifically, now this is a trippy one. I rented 2 cars this year. Now, when I rented the Rolls Royce.
So you did rent a Phantom. Was it a Phantom?
It was a Phantom or a Ghost. I can't remember.
Okay, I do remember seeing you in a Rolls Royce at one point.
Video with Young Stitch. Shout out Young Stitch, signed to Stealth Bomb Records with Snack. I know he's got a whole bunch of dope music and videos coming out with Snack after his trip out west a few weeks ago. Much love to my boy Stitch.
Yeah.
So I rented the Rolls Royce. So the Rolls Royce was an escape for me. That was the week that my grandmother had passed. The day after we shot that video, I buried my grandma. That was the funeral. The day after.
Side note: did you still have the car?
No.
Okay.
No, they limited me on the kilometers I had to drive. They were really good with me in terms of what I was doing. So that one was kind of escape. I always wanted to be in a high-end luxury. The whole time, the theme song for that video in that car was Black Eyed Peas. It was the theme song for Bad Boys 3. What was that? You know the song I'm talking about, right?
I think I do, yeah. I watched it and I was
Rhythm of the Night remix or whatever. Yeah. So I must have bumped that song so many times while I was driving in the Rolls. So that was an escape. The McLaren is different. There's a very specific reason why I rented the McLaren. So my dad has always wanted to go for a drive in a McLaren. He's always had a thing for McLarens. He's never been in one. So the video, I rented it for the video because if you're going to spend that kind of money, write it off. Yeah. Do it like a business. Don't be stupid. Don't just go piss money away. Everything I did for that video, I did to enjoy, but as a write-off. Every single expense, the hotel, the car, the video shoot, everything like that will be written off through distorted views at the end of the year. That's why I did it like that. That's why I rented it for the video. But I took my dad for a drive. Now, he came up with me to pick up the Rolls Royce. So as soon as we started getting in towards Stony Creek, he's like, are we going to that car rental place? I said, yeah, I'm renting this like Mercedes. I need it for a video today and all this and that. So the owner of the company, great guy, has a couple cars in the driveway, and I'm looking at the Mercedes, and the McLaren's sitting there. And my dad goes up and he looks at it. He's like, man, this is nice. Shame we can't go for a drive at this. And the owner looks at me and smirks because now I didn't tell them, but he realizes it's like, oh, you haven't told him yet. So I'm doing all this stuff and signing off. And for those wondering, $1,300 to rent cash plus a $5,000 deductible on my credit card, which you get back as long as you don't fuck up the car. So I basically do all this stuff and I walk over to my dad. It's like, it's a nice car, eh? He's like, yeah, I'd love to go for a drive. I'm like, you want to go for a drive? And he looks at me and he's like, nah, we can't afford this. And I click the unlock button. I'm like, well, we can. Let's go for a drive. So the whole reason I rented a McLaren specifically was for my dad. I could have rented a Lambo. I could have rented a Ferrari. I rented the McLaren for my dad. I killed two birds with one stone and had another moment because through all this, I realized how short life is. My dad's 71.
Your dad was born in 50? 50? No, 49. Must have been 49.
I'm not that good with
no, my dad was born in 50 and he just turned 70. So your dad was born in 79.
So the McLaren specifically was for my dad. The whole video, the premise on the McLaren was all for my dad. So we went for a drive. We ended up going and getting breakfast, did all that with the McLaren and had fun. And then the video shoot started. That was all for my dad. That's why it was a McLaren.
Wow. I bet people who are talking trash feel crap now. Sitting there like, oh, look at him spending all that money on this.
I didn't have to have a McLaren. I didn't have to have a Lambo. I could have did it with a Mercedes. I could have literally rented a Mercedes from fucking Enterprise for like a fucking tenth of the price I paid. I did it for my dad.
The sentiment. That's very respectable. Definite sentiment in that. Like, and that's the thing, when people are looking at the surface, they don't understand what's beneath it, like the motivation, the motives. They look at the action and they don't understand what the motives are. So like, even myself, I'm not gonna lie, I've misjudged some of your actions, and now hearing this story, I'm getting a better understanding of what it is, like that's driving you. So I guess I have to ask you this question because it's relative to it. Yeah, how does money influence your passion for music?
So now we're going to touch on the past I was telling you about.
Okay.
So I'm going to say something bluntly, and everybody watching can take it however the fuck they want to. I did shows for 3 to 4 years. I did shows at Detour. I did shows at Hard Rock Cafe. You name it. There's a lot of people there. This is how me and Choom became very tight. Me and Choom did a lot of shows. Same with Dubs. I took a lot of L's for this city, to the point where like a month of craft dinner, ramen noodles, because there was no money left for anything else. I missed phone bill payments, stuff like that, to put on these shows. And I took L's, and a lot of it, I never made money. I never made money. I barely ever even broke even. I lost money a lot for this city, for these shows. And it made me realize that I didn't really want to be the promoter. So as all this stuff happened, I was starting to focus more on Swish Styles. And in 2015, my last year in Niagara, living in Niagara, I worked for a temp agency struggling to get by. I moved out to London for 3 years, kept jobs, but they were never really that good. And then I found this company I work for now in Toronto. Now, to put this into perspective for everybody watching, I'm 33. Since 15, I've been doing HVAC. I've been in the HVAC industry. That means I'm 33 and I have 18 years experience, which is a very, very valuable thing. So when I walked into that job, I walked in from a job that was nickel and diming me at 16 an hour to $30 an hour. Literally right off the bat, I started that company at 30 an hour. And then a year in, they made me re-sign the contract on a different structure payment, and it pays very well. So to answer your question on how music influences me, or money influences me with music, money never really influenced me with music in the aspect of like, I want to be a baller, ooh, flashy things, shit like that. It was never about the money. When I started with music, there was two things, because I dealt with a lot of severe depression when I was young, a lot. This is a hard one to talk about. Men's health deserves to be known. I unsuccessfully attempted suicide twice. And I'm not going to go into detail how. I don't want to talk any more about it, but I will say that.
Well, you're here for a reason.
So music was never about money. Music was about feeling valuable. Music was realizing I could freestyle, thanks to my boy that I can see is watching right now.
What up?
Music gave me purpose in life. Music made me feel like I had a purpose on this planet. It was the only thing that ever made me feel like I have a purpose on this planet. Like I can do something to change the world. I can make the world a better place.
Did you ever do it through school, or was it just like...
Everything I've ever done has been self-taught. Even the beats I made and produced, everything was self-taught.
A different paradigm, because I took it all through school.
No, not a bit of education. So,
wow, okay.
So when I started really getting deep into music and realized I really had a talent, I did start focusing on, like, I did have the mentality of, oh, if I ever make it, what I do with money. But it was never about me. It was my parents struggled for years. My mom passing wiped $110,000 remortgage off my dad's house and gave my dad the ability to retire. That was a fight in itself, because we had to hire an estate lawyer. That's work. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Money doesn't influence me in the aspect of making music. Money influences me in the aspect of what I can do with music to reach new fan base, because marketing is a key to growing fan base, regardless of who wants to say anything different.
Okay. You're right. You're right about that. So since dealing with the losses that you've dealt with, what kept you going?
Mental health. Mental health. Music. Every time I get severely stressed out, I didn't know how to breathe, I didn't know how to do anything, I wrote music. That's how I came up with 1 Million. That's how I came up with Hand Grenade. There's a lot of new songs that are going to be coming out next year that I'm not talking on right now, that has to do with mental health. Mental health and music seem to go really, really hand in hand for me. Music's always been an escape. Some people use drugs, some people use money or buy hookers or alcohol. I write music. Music has always just been the escape for me.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we walked through the timetable. This has been a question. I think you touched base on it, but for those who might want a direct answer, how do you fund your projects?
I have a lot of education in HVAC. If COVID hadn't happened, I would have hit 6 digits this year. I take care of my family first. My bills are always paid. I make sure I put money away. My daughter has an RESP. By the time she's 80, or by the time she's 18, she'll have 80K sitting there for school. And I will make damn sure in any way, shape, or form I can that by the time she's 18, if she wants to go be a fucking brain surgeon, I'll fucking remortgage a house. I'll go sell crack. I will do whatever the fuck I have to pull 500K up to make sure she can do that. But my daughter has an RESP, and there's a TSFA maxed out with investments in mutual funds that is just sitting there. So if anything ever happens to me, because Lord knows when you get insurance policies and life policies, they pay people just to find ways
not to pay you back.
Not to pay you back.
Yep. Insurance is, we could have a whole conversation about insurance, and that would be just,
yeah.
It's sad that we have to pay so much to avoid an issue or an ailment or this or that.
My dad wanted to get a life insurance policy after everything with my mom. I started looking at what he wanted and looking at his usage, and I told him, I'm like, just start throwing everything into a TSFA. Just start throwing, have it in investments. Between the interest and what you throw in, by the time you're done, the payments will be less and you'll have more.
Yep, you got to make sure you're getting back, like, I think you got to get back at least 4%.
Shout out to Mikey Bars and Will Dridge, because both of them have pushed me heavily into business mentality, to understanding and looking more into the business aspects before you do stuff.
Yeah, you get, like, it's just a matter of getting the right percentage back too, like on those mutual funds and on those things. But alas,
HVAC. It's not selling drugs. It's not some pretty fucking inheritance that I promise you didn't happen. I work my ass off for a living. I work 6 days a week. That's why most of the time you see me down, I'm on Sunday on my day off. I can't, people hit me up, like me and Dubs got a track together. I'm sorry, Dubs. It's been like 6 months. We were supposed to shoot the video and I haven't been able to get down because work.
So what's your secret sauce, so to speak? What's your go-to when it comes to your creative aspects? Like, what is it that you do that, puts you in a different place from everybody else?
I mean, there's a few things. I don't listen to just rap. Like on the way over here, yeah. I was listening to "Scream and Shout" by Britney Spears and will.i.am.
Bro,
I'm so far all over the place with music, from like rock stuff like Crown the Empire, Wage War, Slipknot, to EDM stuff like Skrillex, David Guetta. Lil Wayne is a heavy influence to me, but so was Lupe Fiasco.
Okay.
So I'm so all over the place that when I'm writing music, I'm not in that one style mind. I'm not sitting here. I'm not one of those people that's going to go, oh, Wu-Tang this and you know what I mean? Tupac that. Yeah, I fuck with a lot of the greats. I've taken in a lot of the greats, but I just listen to so much stuff because I get bored of the same sound too quickly.
Okay, all right.
Also, I make a lot of music off of emotion.
Okay. All right. What was the first feeling you experienced when your child was born? Revisiting that.
My child was born. That's a tricky one, because like when my child was first born, there was no feeling. It was, okay, what's got to be done next? And this is where the cocaine came in. Now, it started to get to a point where I was depressed in the beginning of this year, because my daughter was born in October of 2019. So my daughter's at 3-4 months old, and I'm starting to hate myself because I don't feel anything towards my daughter. So it's the cocaine, because I had taught myself how to numb everything out. So when COVID hit and I started to sober up and I started to really experience everything, the first feeling for my daughter was the greatest feeling in the world. And it's the best feeling I have every day. When I have a hard day, it's what I think about. I've actually started realizing how to control my emotions more, because when I get too angry, when I get too upset, I think about my daughter. It's the first feeling I had towards my daughter is just that I will do anything and everything to make sure your life is the best I can make it.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Because that means you have that connection established. There's some people who are numb, like, and not for any like drug purpose, but like are numb to that connection. So they don't know how to, relate, kind of thing. I know, like, when it comes, my daughter is she's my screensaver. Like, because when I have stressful days and I just open my phone and I see her smile, it's just like, oh my gosh, you've come from so far till now. It's like, it's great. So I wish you many, many successes where it comes to your parenting, and just if I can offer you any parental advice, just trust yourself. Trust yourself,
Thank
and you will, like, you'll know. You just, like, if you're not sure, meditate and trust yourself, and then you'll figure out what to. There's times where I'm just like, I'm at her, and it's just like, wait a minute, am I at her because she needs to get gotten at, or am I at her because of something that's wrong with me? And a lot of the times it's something that's wrong with me, and then, it'll come out because she'll ask me a question, and it's just like, and I'll try to teach her that life lesson, not realizing I'm the one who has to learn it.
Yeah.
So, it's just, it's honestly one of the most gratifying things, like seeing yourself in your child is one of the most gratifying things, or seeing myself in my child, or even my wife in my child. It's like, you can tell, and you'll get to the point where it's like, okay, that's one of your traits. You're going to have to deal with that.
I was so bad as a kid for climbing shit, climbing cupboards, climbing stuff like that. My daughter is 14 months and she's already like climbing chairs, climbing couch. Man. My daughter, by the time my daughter was 8 months old, she could climb up on the couch and knew how to get down off the couch.
Wow.
It's scary.
That's scary, bro. I remember one time we had this L couch, an L sectional, and I put her on this corner. I put her on the far side, and the converter is like where you're sitting. So she crawls across, and I saw her go into the converter. I'm like, oh, are you going to turn the TV on for daddy? Crawls over to the converter, picks up the converter, turns on the TV. She's 6 months old. Yeah. I'm looking at her like, you understood that? You did it? Okay. There was another time I said, before we went to the store, I said, okay, remember, we need to get some hair ties for you. So we get our stuff and we're getting ready to go. And she walks off. Like, where are you? I'm calling at her. I'm like, where are you going? And she's walking down the aisle. So she stands in front of the hair ties and she's pointing at them. I completely forgot. Jenny completely forgot, but she remembered. And we'd been to the store a couple of times, like maybe twice before. So she knew where it was. So it's like, and she's pointing at them. I'm like, oh, wow, you're right. Picked up the things.
Yeah.
They know. There's this one, I don't know how spiritual you are, if you're religious in any way, but there's this one scripture in the Bible where they're like, Rhoda. They say, listen to Rhoda, because Rhoda's a kid that heard the door knock when all the adults didn't. And it was, I think it was like one of the spirits coming to visit or some shit like that. So they're like, you got to listen to, basically the kids know what they're doing is what I'm trying to get to. So like, just, if you pay attention, if you watch them close, bro, I'm telling you, that's why, like, it's just amazing to see like some of that kind of stuff. But like, revisiting what we're here for, you being here, that's a big thing to discuss, because as a man, we're supposed to be macho and, we don't have feelings. And
that's why what pushed me over the edge with cocaine is not being able to talk to anybody. Like, I got a lot of boys, and this isn't a shot at some of my boys, but I know I can't talk to my boys about that because I'm going to get toughen up. You got to be a man conversation.
Yeah.
That's just how we were raised.
So what does it to be a man? What does it mean to be a man? Realistically speaking, it means to own up to your feelings, own up to your emotions. Know that, hey, you know what? We have fragility, in the sense of, like, as much as we're expected to be a certain way, it can't always be that way. Yeah. And to be that way, we need support from like our peers and, our family and things like that. Like, I mean, I know there's times where it comes to me where it's just like, okay, like, what the fuck? Like, okay, 3 situations, 3 different people, 3 different situations, all of them created a conflict to a degree with me. And I'm left wondering what the hell I did wrong. I opened my house to one guy. I brought my house to the second guy. You know what I mean? And the third guy is just, I did a lot of work for free, and he decided to take umbrage with the way I did the work. It's like, but I'm doing good for you. And you're fucking with my mind, trying to make me seem like I'm the bad guy. Like, okay, cool. Onward and upward, because if I get caught up in, there's 7 billion people in the world, I got to be able to tell myself that I'm doing good, because I know some of them are going to tell me that I can't. So that's just the mental health thing where it comes down to it. You touched base on a few of these questions before I even got to ask them. So that's good. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Self-employed.
Okay.
Self-employed is a big one. That's one I'm definitely going to be working towards. Music is peculiar. I see myself still making music in 10 years, but the next 3 years, 4 years, especially with the business plan me and Will have, I'm either going to be where I want to be or I'm going to be at a point where it's going to go to back burner because my daughter will be old enough that I'll want to be able to focus on being a family man. And that's where self-employment comes into aspect because I want to create more hours and more time to be there for her while being able to provide more because I don't have to pay most of it to the guy who owns the company.
So you want to be the guy getting that pay.
That's right.
That's what's up. That's exactly what's up. So, man, this is definitely an interesting conversation. I'm glad that I got to host this because I feel like I'm learning more about you, and not only that, it's like I now, in looking at other artists, you know what I mean, have to take consideration that as much as on the surface, and this isn't a shot or anything, on the surface they appear like everything's hunky dory. I couldn't find a better term, but it appears like everything's copacetic. There we go. So, but like there are internal workings that are being affected by personal conflict.
A lot of people only got to see the Swish Styles that I wanted to show this year, and a lot of it's because of shows. But that's why I wanted to do this, partially because it's time to just get it out. And if people want to fucking hate, they can hate me for who I am instead of who they think I am. But also, I wanted it to be done by you because, like I said, we never really switched up, man. A lot of people switched up this year. I spent so much money, put myself in such a hard place doing shows for other people. And the second I decided to step back, focus on myself, do Swish Styles, a lot of people turned their back. And I saw that. And I'm kind of thankful that it happened the way it did because if shows come back, me and Will have some big plans, and I don't have energy for those people anymore.
Oh man, and that's one of the things I found too. COVID has showed me who's here and who's here for themselves and who's here for the right reasons. And you know what I mean? It's unfortunate it's unfortunate, but at the same time it's a good thing because like you see, it's like I didn't want to see it, but I knew it, I felt it, but I didn't want to see it. And then it showed itself and I was just like, yep, there it is. I can't avoid it. I can't argue with it. That's what it is. Red flags, man. So like, for the sake of like my mental health, your mental health, it's just when we see there's a problem, we have to address it right away. Because if you let it go, there's times where it just presents itself worse. You know what I mean? So, man. Well, while we're here, you know what I mean, and I've been asking you all of these questions, and I feel it's only right if you have any questions of me that you might ask them at this point.
I mean, I don't really have any questions for you to block, but I will say a couple things.
Okay.
Please keep doing Culture Shock.
Okay.
Please keep doing this stuff for Johnny Armoni. I see the passion in that man.
Yeah.
And I know you're not going to steer him wrong.
No. Definitely.
I know a lot of people think Will is all business. I want to say something very bluntly to the camera. Will is all business, but Will isn't a bad guy. Will has what's best for the interests of himself and the people around him that help support him. Will's not the type of person that's going to let himself be a free handout. The problem in this scene, especially in Niagara, is that everybody wants a free handout. You're not going to get it. We don't want a free handout.
Yep.
You can build with us or you can fuck up.
That's as simple as it is. It's like, and there's nothing saying you can't build and I can't build, and then we come together and build something different. You know what I mean?
There's one other thing I want to touch topic on in this interview because Will can't, and that's willpower.
Okay.
When Willpower signed to Will's record deal, there was an NDA signed for 2 years. So Will can't touch a lot of these topics, and I know a lot of people have these questions. So I'm going to say this stuff bluntly. I'm going to give you guys the whole facts of the situation.
Okay.
When Will signed Willpower, I didn't know a lot about Willpower, and I was my own problem. So it was whatever. I had heard some music. Yeah, okay, it wasn't too bad. Cool, do your thing. First and foremost, Will told me he tried to get him to sign a contract saying that I'm taking a percentage of what you earn. Will Power demanded that he take money. Will Power was a very emotional person. That was what basically started the downfall of Will Power on our team. Was he was far too emotional. So that same money that he demanded Will take became the problem, because every time Will would do something a certain way or try to help him with the forethought of what was coming forward, it wasn't how Will Power saw it, and it became a headache, and why I'm paying you and this and that. So there were a couple signs that told us, but it was the Mad Child show in 2019, the end of 2019.
Yeah.
Will Power went into the green room where Mad was. I didn't realize this till after. Robbie's trying to get him out. Security's trying to get him out. Will's trying to get him out. Will finally gets him out, sends him on his way. We try and talk to him the next day and explain, like, you can't do this as an artist. There's a reason there's a green room. You have to be respectful. And his exact words were, well, I don't care. I'd do it again. It was worth it for me. So there's a huge black flag now, because now we know no matter what we try and do to help this man, he's going to do whatever he wants. Will's last straw, big shout out to the Lunds. I got a lot of respect for Ryan and Jill Lund. Will Power, Will Dridge was doing all the social medias for Will, and one day his messenger starts going off. Now the funniest thing is me and Will are literally on the phone at this point. I'm at work doing a job, and Will's talking to me from home, and his messenger just starts dinging on, and it's Will Power talking shit to Jill about it, and he's watching the whole thing. So it's going, being emotional, talking about how I don't remember the whole thing, but just talking very negatively towards Will. And how Will's taking advantage of him and this and that. And again, this is the same person that insisted Will take money. And Will caught it, called him up and said, you're done. We're done. You need to apologize to Jill. You need to make that right. You can't be doing that kind of shit.
Jill's got a heart of gold. I can't imagine anybody having a problem with her.
I can tell you right now that Will didn't want to drop Will Power, especially after he broke his leg. Will had no choice but to let go of Will Power. And initially, when the contract was broken, it was still in the contract that Will Power had to pay. Will didn't take any money. Will cut the contract clean because Will Power needed to rehabilitate himself and fix himself. But this is where it gets interesting, is when the contract was cut, the intentions were that Will Power could come back. He just needed to fix himself, get himself back into the right place. That got ixnayed very quickly. Will Power has a severe alcohol problem, to the point where if you ever see that man driving, get the fuck off the road, because he's probably been drinking. He smashed his own car up, demoed that, and then it was a few months later he came to see Will driving his uncle's car with a thermos full of vodka. That man has a very, very bad problem with drinking, and we don't want anything to do with him. We only wish that he realizes his situations and betters himself at this point. It's no hate. There's no hate towards Will Power. It's that Will Power has a lot of demons.
Hey, man, I want to see everybody eat, but doesn't mean they can all sit at my table.
So anybody that was wondering, because I know that's been an issue. A lot of people have been thinking like we dropped him when he was down and out. It's unfortunate that we had to drop him. We had no choice but to drop him when we did. Unfortunately, it was at the same time that he decided to break his foot. I can tell you right now, if he didn't break his foot, he would have gotten himself dropped anyway. So I can tell you right now that if he didn't break his foot, there's a very good chance he might have killed himself driving that night, because he was drinking, and that's what caused him to break his foot.
Well, since we're on the topic of artists no longer working with the label, why did Pluto unsign from the label? What happened there?
So, on first and foremost, I want to say that I got nothing but love for Pluto. There's definitely no hard emotions. I got nothing but love from Pluto. The last thing I said to him the night he walked away was, I will see you at the top. The reason I signed Pluto is because Pluto is a very talented artist that is the only other person I really see in the city that has the ability to be very multi-dimensional with his music, like very, very different genre oriented. He can make so much different stuff. And his work ethic, I don't think there's another artist in the city that can keep up with his work ethic in terms of how quick he can make music. There were things with him and Will not necessarily agreeing on certain things he needed. We always had his best intentions. But he was always very focused on Black Rabbit. He's always been focused on Black Rabbit. And as far as I know, when he left, it was just because he wanted to focus more on being Black Rabbit. And to be completely honest, like, it was my job to manage him more than Will's. And with work and everything going on in my life, I don't think I was really able to be there enough for him to feel like I was doing enough. I mean, I never made a cent off him. It was never in the contract that I just got 50%. I only got 15% of anything I made him. So, like, it was never really like taking money. It was always just trying to be there to help. But I don't know if maybe the business got involved and it kind of messed things up. As far as I know, we're still good. I'm going to still go help him with the album and stuff like that. But it just didn't work out as far as him being under our management. He's very smart. He's doing things for himself. He might not even necessarily need our management.
Right. Well, we've touched bases on pretty much everything, except for, like, there was a question as to why was he left out in London for a show?
So I've been having problems with my throat. I actually just went and saw an ENT specialist this past week to get all clear, make sure I didn't have any like polyps or any cancer or anything with that. So actually, that show was supposed to be me. I was a special guest, and I was bringing Pluto out to do 5 minutes on my 20-minute set, I think. So we were going to do Mindful. I was going to let him do a couple songs and then just go right back into my set. I started having a very serious problem with my throat. I had a sore throat. With everything with COVID, I didn't want to go into it then sick, handing artists microphones back and forth. And I didn't want to fuck over Pluto. So I just said, yo, fuck it. Do you want the full 20-minute set? I literally messaged him the morning of the show. I said, yo, add on another 15 minutes to your set. You're going to go take the show. I'm not going to make it out tonight because I knew my throat was cooked. I didn't want to perform. So I just let him take the show. No sense in punishing him because I couldn't make it out.
Honorable. Very honorable thing to do. All right. I can't even think of anything else right now.
I know he ended up doing some good networking. Cass, my boy Casper Marcus, shout out Casper Marcus. That man has some dope things in the work that I'm not going to speak on. Cass linked up with him. I don't know if they were able to get a track done at the hotel after the show or not, but like, he made some good connections. He did what I had hoped he was able to do in terms of going out and doing that show. Yeah, no, it was never leaving him out there. It was more just like, dude, I'm not making it out. If you want to take it, take the whole set.
Okay. And that's why I asked, because it's just like I said, there's three sides to every story, you know what I mean? Yours, mine, and the truth, they say. Yours, mine, and the truth. But like, as it goes, man, that's a good interview. That's a damn good interview. Like, people should by now have a better idea of, your reasonings. And you're
I'm
right.
not just a rich asshole. Not rich.
But that's just a rich asshole, I do say. I'm not rich. No, but honestly, it does. And when I hear, like, and that's the thing, when you take the time, and that's what I love about this podcast, when you take the time to talk to people, you get a whole different insight as to their mechanisms and their actions and the reasonings. And it's like, we can understand each other better through conversation. So y'all take the time to speak up. All right.
Now, if y'all still want to hate on me, now that you know the whole truth, you can hate on me.
I got 2 words for you. That's what's up. That's what's up.
I appreciate you very much for having me.
Yo, man, honestly, man, I appreciate you coming through. It's been a blessed conversation. We're going to close out for now, but you're more than welcome to come out another time and we'll continue the talks. All right, there we go.